Okay, welcome to the Stellified podcast. And today I'm joined once again by author, philosopher, and incredible mind, James True, a man who never shies away from piercing the veil between control and consciousness. James is known for his fearless explorations into human sovereignty, spiritual technology, and the architecture of belief. He's written extensively about how language, perception, and programming shape our world, and how the war for humanity isn't being fought on the battlefield, but in the field of awareness itself. So in this conversation, I hope to be unpacking several threads that all connect to one central theme, and that's control and the illusion of freedom, from mass migration and border manipulation to the rapid rise of AI, the digital ID infrastructure, and the transhumanist dream. We'll explore how the same forces seem to be at work across systems, engineering consent, dependency, and disconnection from spirit. But as always on my channel, I hope to seek to illuminate the way out, and that's why I'm honoured to have James back. So thank you so much, James, for coming back on the channel.
Oh, it's great to be here. It's great to spend this time with you. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Thank you.
Me too, James. Me too. I think it's a while since we spoke last,
Yeah, yeah.
and we spoke heavily about human behaviour because I know that's a big part of your work, really. And I learned a lot from our chat, as I always do, listening to you constantly, having to re-listen to you because of the way you come across and the words that you use sometimes. I have to, that challenge works for me because it makes me work harder. So as I said in the previous podcast, I really appreciate what you do. And it's been a while and things seem to be getting crazier since the last time we chatted. And
Indeed. Mhm.
yeah, how have you been perceiving the current sort of atmosphere of this realm that we find ourselves in?
Great question. I've been using the analogy of 8K reality lately to describe this sort of mandala effect idea where everything that we thought was true is turning to cellophane and shattering around us, and we're emerging into a new kind of darkness, and we're feeling around and we're painting a new picture, and that picture is the same picture as before, but now it's in a higher resolution.
Yeah,
This higher resolution, I think, is directly related to conscious growth. And I think that I'm really glad you said that. I think this is a sort of war on consciousness itself, and that the enemy is much more personal than we're able to admit. And so there's the enemy is within. I say it's not a war between good and evil. It's a war between you and the lack of you. And so much of the evil that we see in the world is really proto-conscious being that are not yet ready to bloom a kind of flower of consciousness of self. So they're tapping into the herd. The herd has wisdom for them. It's given them all the tools and traits they've needed to survive. But one of those is cannibalism. One of those is self-enslavement. One of those is victimhood. And all of these things are building the machine around us that is trying to protect us, but it's also trying to kill us, because the protector is the thing that will cannibalize us in the end, because we're so afraid of being out there in this dark consciousness, this new territory, for the very first time alone.
this realm is it's a bit of a labyrinth, is it not? It's kind of, it's weird. I find myself, it's like I want a peaceful life, but I don't. It's almost like
Yeah.
I want to go and live on the boat that me and my missus have talked about and just float off and have a peaceful existence. But then part of me just wants to be stuck into the madness of it as well. And I need to protect my daughter and my son from the madness. There's that innate
Yeah.
whatever it is that's in me. And I found myself I've been enjoying doing the Stellify project, if you like, or the channel for the past 12 months, and just talking about consciousness and learning about it and exploring that. And then digital ID was announced in the UK, and all of a sudden, my whole being went back into 3D mode, and it was like, I've got to protect my kids.
Right.
And it's really weird how that works for me, but I'm not dissing that either. That's just part of my, it's programming, I realize, but it's part of who I'm here to be as well, I feel. Whatever my purpose is. Does that make sense?
Of course it does. I think it fits in with the 8K model, because if you think about all of your thoughts, all of your memories really are just prejudices, things that have happened to you in the past where you've been like, hey, I really like this. That's a prejudice. I really don't like that. That's a prejudice.
Yeah.
And the self is really just a 13 billion year equation of, hey, do you like this? Like stretch back from the time we were, swallowing sand and turning it into pearls. And we had all these different vertebraes that we could log into and have an experience. And the entire time, the spine itself feels to be like some sort of hermetic ladder. And on this ladder, there are different modes of being. And those modes have a range of consciousness. And as we live in a world that becomes more comfortable, I believe that our flame starts to die. The conscious flame of what it means to be alive starts to erode. And we purposely create an environment around us that injects terror, injects sanctity, injects porn, injects spirituality, and injects multi-generational revenge or avenge, or the saving of it all, or the murdering of horrible things, or the saving of those horrible things. And that all these are kind of a stretching that your brain would need in order to keep expanding.
Yes.
So all the drama in the world is actually a sign of self-love, because you love your Prometheus. This flame of consciousness has to be fed. And the more complacent, the more comfortable we become, the more we give birth to children that want to rebel. And that revolution is in fact a sign of healthy growth. But how do you have this continuous greenhouse that's constantly providing you all of the terror berries that you can eat, all of the goodness berries you could find, and still maintain? It's sort of like a wolf would need like 500 square miles to live in the wild.
Yeah.
And your consciousness is the same. And we're doing the opposite of that to our environment. And so, but also we're developing new territory. We have a whole new silicon landscape right now that we can insert emoticons, which are just emotions, into. So, we've given ourselves a new sandbox, which is great. I actually think that new sandbox will end up being the very thing that it's almost like a tomato steak, where technically it's going to crucify us and we're going to suffer in the sun, but it's also going to give us this new place where we're the fractal of consciousness is going to be able to continue to build this sort of what I call as the omniscient Osiris, the grand unification or singularity that people are rightly terrified about, by the way. I do think that this is quite a more organic, natural thing that was done on purpose, because it's how you would grow the most crystals, the fattest buds on consciousness. You're going to want to do it this way,
It's I when I look around though, in my area where I live, most people, I don't know what it is. I think even when I'm growing up and I'm looking around, I'm not the same as anyone else. Now that might be just because I'm living my dream. I can't, but nobody seems to have, I'm not saying nobody, but people around me do not have the same passion or it's real. I'm trying to put my finger on it, but it's like, I think I heard you recently talking about caring for others, and who do you really care for? And I care. It's weird. It's like, why should I care? But I have this burning thing inside of me that gives a shit about people being trodden on. I've always been anti-establishment as a child, and I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. I wasn't taught it. I just didn't understand how the Queen in the UK could have all this wealth and I would be suffering. I could never get my head around it, and it still triggers me, my being today, and that I presume that's my hero's journey, my own personal hero's journey to grow my own consciousness and my own dream. Is that how you would perceive that?
So that disparity, excuse me, is a kind of a piece of soil where part of your roots could also plant, and you would be able to drink. You're able to drape your consciousness upon those feelings, and it's almost always limbically. It's always an emotional attachment you have, or a protection that you have, or a passion that you plan into the world. So the world is just basically furniture. It's just a giant totem of furniture that's fungible. You can pick up a doll and say, this is my teddy bear Freddy. And it's just cotton. It's just strewn together, but it holds energy. And that holding of energy allows you to keep your Promethean flame alive. So you would hope that you would find a lot of drama in the world. And you would hope even more, one of the largest signs of success is that you would feel alone in a field of stormtroopers. You would, in 1,000 stormtroopers, you would be that one Jedi, and that you, as being the first chief, I call this the phenomenon of the first chief. You being the first chief, you're going to have a group fire and no one's going to be there. That's why you're chief. You are creating a new tribe that's never been here before. And the reason why it's never been there before is because of how hard it is to be the only chief, to be the only person that's building the fire and expecting and hoping people will come. And when they don't, you do it anyway. And that is a necessity to prove to the world that you are hermetically ready to bloom, to blossom as a conscious entity. So it's actually a sign of health that you are so uncomfortable. And so I'm not saying you're using those words, but
no, but it's true.
That each of us are uncomfortable, and each of us feel like we're an island of consciousness unto ourselves. And there's this mycelium network, the internet, and it's giving you, for the very first time, the ability to relate to other people. And if you would not have found others that are like you, even when it's 1 out of every 1,000, I think that you and I would die eventually, or we would develop a kind of social schizophrenia because we would not meet anyone else that is also doing that. Which is why when I look at all the control systems, all of the things that are happening, I see them as being absolutely two sides of the leaf. That those who want to suffer under what's happening, you're going to have all these opportunities. You just have to get underneath the leaf. And you're going to be able to say, there's no sun and the rain just, we're going to dry as a drought and no one loves us. And that this is how you'd feel alive, because so many times you're carrying, your identity is going to be possessed by the epigenetic memories of everything that's happened.
You actually led me into my next question in a way, because you were talking about control.
Right.
And I know you've spoken before about inversion as sort of a primary tactic of control. Do you see that playing out now in sort of like the realms of technology and governance as well?
So I think that's a cipher of looking at the world through, and it's accurate and valid.
Yeah.
And in my hunting of they, the finding of who they are,
Yeah.
it leads me back to us and
Yeah.
the people in my own foxhole.
Yeah.
I can't blame, although I get angry. Right now I'm kind of mad at there's a figure named Tucker Carlson, and
Yeah.
he's Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson are unable to say that Dick Cheney was a war criminal. And like
Wow.
I'm watching those guys lead the charge, and if I reply to a comment that reminds someone, hey, Tucker Carlson's telling you what a great guy Dick Cheney is and how he's a fun guy to fish with, and he's a
Oh
war
God.
criminal, a
Oh
9/11 war
God.
criminal,
Yeah.
and I'm being told I'm a lefty, or I'm a liberal, or I'm a Jew lover, or I'm a Jew hater.
Wow.
It when I see that system, and Blueprints of Mind Control was just one of the ways that I did that. Was the writing of that book was really just an anatomical study of us, not them. And I I've really don't have the same kind of audience ever since I started to do that, but I find that it's the only constructive form of seeing that I've been able to comprehend. And so they is a structure of a group mind, and the group mind has urges, and those urges are filled by self-sacrificial people that are willing to do whatever it takes to be in that position. And so I don't see them as having nearly as much control as we do, as the modern psyche, as the modern person that's on the ground.
Yeah.
And even if we find, if I tried to be one of those figures, I thought, well, I will just tell truth like it's never been told before. And when I did that in Blueprints of Mind Control and Technology of Belief, I don't mean to sound like I'm plugging those, but it's just like that's all my work. That's like 3 years of just like, who is they? Who is they?
Yeah.
And it led me to understand that there's again, this egregorical plasma, a collective hallucination that's put on by the herd. And that herd we are in because the herd's great. It's a healthy thing to have a herd. It's given us so much. It will continue to give us so much. I'm a big fan of tribalism. And when you have something like this, you're going to also have everything that's everything that's happening in the world. So they're mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And because of that, I've noticed that I'm not being honest with myself by pushing sovereignty as much as I should be pushing symbiosis.
Interesting.
Do you see the difference there?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it's not a system of I think I'm right or this is the only way. It's a pure madness calculation. I'm throwing spells at this thing, you know. I'm throwing just magic. It's because I live in a jungle, and I do accept that everything that's happening, including a bunch of people really wanting to be slaves and wanting to build a city and wanting to drop chemtrails on that city and wanting a big dome and building a wall that has an immigration policy, and that there's a giant raging hard on for that. And that's, I don't want to say that's just this guy. I think that that's an urge. And if that urge wasn't there, I don't think there would be someone like Tucker Carlson who would be considered the archetype of that. I think that archetype, it requires a large root structure inside of the majority of or the collective of the herd, so to speak.
Yeah, I can imagine that this challenges a lot of people, though, isn't it? Because a lot of people in the truther
Mm-hmm.
freedom circle would look at Tucker Carlson as a pioneer
Yeah.
in the news, if you
Yeah.
like, in independent news, looking for truth. But then there's question marks, isn't there, of his background also. So the whole thing can confuse people, isn't it? And I suppose that's how controlled opposition
Well,
can
that's
come in.
why, yeah, that's why I'm always misconstrued as I'm saying, here is the objective reality. Tucker Carlson will not admit that Dick Cheney is a war criminal. Like that's I look at that as I'm in reality at 117 hertz.
Yeah,
And if I turn my sonar dial up or down, I'm going to see a different reality. And each of those are valid because that's how reality works.
yeah,
And there's a reality where it is very true and very valid that Tucker left Fox News. He was ousted. He says radical things. He's not afraid to interview anyone. All those are true. And how much clout do I lose by arguing with someone who's supposed to be in my foxhole anyway?
mm,
It doesn't make any sense. In fact, I scare those people. If I say what I think, they think that I don't belong here. They think that I am here to break their spirit when I feel like I'm the one who's trying to keep the sacred fire of like, well, isn't this what we stand for? Where where you would never get into Fox News if you were a true rebel Turtle Island, that's what I call it, Turtle Island loyalist,
yeah,
you would never have even been able to get a job at Fox News because your integrity would have gone down in flames just like mine. I don't mean to sound like look at all that, but I'm a talented writer. I have a
mm,
sharp mind. I've been have accolades in that way. If I could have of converted into this kind of doper, truth doper,
yeah,
I think I would be more successful. And I I think that it's more about how reality works, though. It's not about it's wrong. It's not about it's broken. I used to think
mm,
that it's broken. It's really more about mythology. And all
mm,
these figures are casting their nets for the most important fish in the sea, which is our witness, our belief. So when I look at it that way, everything, there is no truth at all. Everything is a fantasy cast by an archetype. And Tucker puts on the bow tie because he wants to look like Orion. He wants to look like a constellation that's already in someone's mind of a trustful fly fisherman who lives in a cabin with his dog. And Dick Cheney's not a war criminal. I've seen him tie the most beautiful flies and drop that fly in a teacup across the river on the most beautiful sunrise you've ever seen. I literally says stuff like this. So I can't survive in this if I thought that we have to win. There's the good guys, there's the bad guys. I have to
yeah,
look at this as a different kind of existence. And so I approach it from the mythology and I look at it as this is truly what the jungle is. Their truth would be slaughtered in the jungle.
mm-hmm,
It's a rarity. You have to work against yourself because it's anti-herd. It's not always, I'm not saying that the herd is always wrong because I actually trust the herd. I think that even the only after reflection, this is hard, but even watching after the insanity of COVID-19, watching the insanity of the terrorist program, all the insanities, I used to be like, this is so wrong. But I've watched a conscious spark igniting in people's minds that it wasn't there before. And I'm looking at a terror algorithm, a surreality, a not a reality show, but a surreality show, a terror algorithm that trimmers and causes only a few people like you, like me, to wake up.
mm-hmm,
And when I see that happening, it's harder for me to insist that all these things are purely black and white evil. It seems like there's some magic at work that's as whenever the good is rising, so is the evil. Whenever the
yeah,
good is rising, so is the evil, and they seem to be more intertwined. than I used to think. And this freaks people out. They're not ready to look at the world that way because they're at a different hertz. 117 hertz is a complicated hertz. I gotta do crazy stuff. I gotta believe in magic. I gotta believe in symbolism. I gotta spend all my time studying star charts and like looking at ancient ways the moon moves and how it looks like it's humping along the ecliptic. And that takes years and years of dedication to become that kind of like symbolist. And so not everybody wants to do it that way. I can't even expect anyone to convert. I only know that if I have more calories, I'm more compassionate. And if I'm more compassionate, I can see the world more clearly. It's not about being kind. It's not about being polite. If I can compassionate the world, I can see my enemy because they're no longer my enemy. I can disarm them because I can understand what is their cipher. What hurts are they looking at this world in right now? Is it one of hate? Is it one of revenge? Is it one of desperate survivalism? Is it a worship of fertility? Is it a worship of war? Is it a worship of revenge? Is it a worship of seeking? So many of us, I think, get divorced because we're seeking a ritual of resurrection in our lifetime. And so we have this ritual where we're like, let's get married and live happily ever after. And that beautiful ritual is supposed to crack open. You want those particles to accelerate and smash into each other because something else comes out. And that coming out is this conscious sort of Promethean spirit where the fire is crackling.
Yeah.
So I look at like pain and suffering and vitriol in maybe a twisted way. And, you could call that twisted. It'd be okay.
But it's important though.
To me it is. Yeah. And it's only because that's where I'm at now. And I feel like I have a lot more calories because I no longer need to insist that I'm right. I still struggle with this, by the way, but it's like, I don't have to, even if you're a Nazi, there's so many new spectrums and colors coming out right now. And I think that I'd be a better musician, a mythologist, if I could play every one of these styles from every one of those bandwidths, right? If I knew that, I think I would be able to decipher what's happening more clearly. And so that's why I have my views on the AI and on this technocracy, the omniscient state would be a way you could sort of call it. It's a very real thing. It's very terrifying, and it's very biblical too. It's very naturally biblical in the same way. So,
well, I definitely want to get into that. I absolutely do. But if you don't mind, I know that you've been speaking recently about migration recently in the USA and ICE particularly. I don't know a great deal about it myself, apart from my daughter, who is very passionate like I am, has been telling me these stories of how ICE have been so destructive in dealing with individuals and families, and it upsets her. And I understand because we're similar. So I know that I would feel that same pain that she does by looking at that. Could you explain it? Is this like this ICE situation, this engineered migration that seems to be happening? Is this an organic chaos? Is it an intentional destabilization mechanism?
Yeah, it's a great question. Today is the anniversary of the Berlin Wall going down. And I think that's ironic because we're just like, we have to build this wall. We're gonna build this wall. And we build the wall and everything's just like, is everything better? Is everything better? Is everything better? And then you get to a state where we're going to tear this ball down. And although I can ridicule that because it deserves it, I'm also telling you that's the hero's journey. I'm telling you this is a piston motor where if civilization wants to grow, it's going to have to pull from two different sets of reins. You got a rein on the left, anti-Semitism. You got the rein on the right, which is like pro-Zionism. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way, but seriously, if you if you look at how crucial Israel is, the entire world is just divided right down the middle, right into that rock. It's an omphalos, and if you didn't have that, we wouldn't have two lungs. We wouldn't have an ability for this giant plasma creature to breathe. So all of us are pranking this system. All of us are frequency pranksters. All of us are throwing and hurling our magic, spitting our magic, pissing our magic, just even pooping it, because we're so moved by it, and we want it to change. We want it to change. And there's a wisdom of nature collectively that you can find a lot of trust in, because you realize it's a giant cauldron and everyone's throwing their angst into it. And that ultimately that grand equation you're going to have to trust in, because I swear, if you don't trust in it, you're just going to have to hide in a hole. You're going to have to call yourself sovereign, which I think is a beautiful word. It's such an important emergence when it comes to consciousness. But once you reach sovereignty, you're ready to bloom, and you notice, oh my God, I have to put pollen out. I have to be in the world to survive. And the next flowering state of that is this kind of symbiosis. If you are not at that stage of symbiosis and you are at survivalism, I think survivalism is below sovereignty. But if you look, those are three different modes of life, aren't there? You've got, can I survive? That's like Maslow's pyramid, food, clothing, shelter. Then can I feel sovereign? Can I remove myself from a parasitic relationship, meaning worker or slave or white collar or blue collar or soldier or congregation even? And so all that's important to reach that sovereignty. And then at the top of the sovereignty, you are pinnacled. That pyramid is solved. And after that, you start to notice that you're a fountainhead, that you're supposed to pollinate others. That's what you're going through now. The angst that you feel is probably guilt, because you're like, why am I not putting out better pollen right now? Because Gaia is telling you, hey, man, stop being so freaking lame. Like I put a lot of juice in your heels, man. I grew you. I gave you sunlight. I do all these things. Get off your ass. And you being able to feel that way is only because you have these antlers that reach into those 117 hertz range. And so you're able to even feel guilt. You're able to feel the pulse of Turtle Island calling you to do something, and that this would be the same kind of tomato steak. This is a hermetic ladder of consciousness that's allowing you to constantly find more sunlight, but only if you're willing to reach, only if you're willing to go up there. And you have so many people that are afraid to climb, and that's okay. They don't know it's not okay, but they feel guilty. And the fact that they feel guilty about not being more active, say on ice, just one example, I think is part of why you have the system the way it is now. See, if you are too prolific and you start to grow into the range where you're feeling collective guilt because of what your government is doing to innocent people, you're going to feel like shit. And if you don't want to feel that way, you're going to develop an animosity, an inflammatory response to rising higher.
Yeah.
And this is why I think they is this. I think they is this inflammatory response that I hope I'm explaining. I hope I'm not being too complicated, but it's like an immune response that a child would have, that your dogs would have, that I would have, that my dad would have, to a changing world. And we're not necessarily ready. So that to me is the biggest source of they. That's there ought to be a law crowd. That's someone should do something. That's think of the children. These three tenets, I think, are opportunities to inflame the glass ceiling and to not grow. And so it becomes, it works. It allows people to sort of stay closer to the lower level, sort of living on their belly, because if people are firing shotguns in an open field, you're going to want to be on your belly. This is a valid response to living in the jungle, and we're in denial of living in the jungle. So we're building all these things. A huge way of saying, I think this is ultimately what a border is, what a wall is. You're going to need walls to grow a family. You're going to feel more powerful. You're going to have more calories. You're going to be able to compassionate your neighbors if you're living in a fortress that you feel safe in. So that's a good feeling. That's a feeling of self-worth. So borders are a reflection of self-worth. But also look at look at what happens when you build a border. People inside go insane. They become civilized. They literally wander around with neckties around their neck, like nooses out of silk around their neck, and they fight each other over commas on paper. You know, what is the paycheck? How many commas? Or what's the decimal? How many numbers are there?
Yeah.
And so you end up having the same kind of violence that you were trying to build a wall from is very naturally going to have to proliferate inside the walls. And once you do that, you're going to be, oh my God, we're going to tear these walls down. And both of this is a breathing exercise. So I can't sit there and judge it and say, this is wrong. I think that it's insane. And I think that sanity has always been a story that we tell ourselves at bedtime. And we just kind of lived in that imagination. It's kind of like, you know, if you were playing as a child and you're like, hey, let's play this, and you're playing, but then you're pretending to be a soccer player, but then you're playing a video game. So there are two layers of playing.
Yeah.
And really just growing up is there's just certain layers of play that everyone wants to play, and that you just keep playing that. And one of them is sanity, if this makes sense. One
Yeah,
of
it
them is
does.
the idea that all of us are sane. Even though we do horrible things, our apathy is one of the most violent things that we have.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
That only happens because we're playing sane.
Yeah. That makes complete sense. And you know what, as well, listening to you, James, you make me actually fall in love with the madness of the world.
Yeah,
Because,
those are calories.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, those are calories you gain because I'm talking you into a different antler posture. If you think about the nerves in your face and the nerves on your chest, these are your antlers. And you can look up a picture of your nervous system and you'll see these antlers, and you'll know that you can activate them through charge, through potassium, through your willingness to relax your polyvagus system.
Mm-hmm.
When you digest food, you are only able to digest it if you're relaxed. So
Mm-hmm.
you need a certain environment before you can do something as insane as, hey, let's digest food right now. Let's start to secrete saliva. Let's open our taste buds. Let's dilate our esophagus so it can drink the lumen, the light that is emitting from the food that we digest. And that's a vulnerable state that requires you to have a luxury of living above survival and closer to the realm of sanctity, where you love your life more than you want to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And this is considered weak. Like ultimately, if you think about the ultimate alpha male, this would be anti that, because they're a pinnacle, they're an icon for survival. You're going to need that if you're going to breed sanctity. You're going to need that kind of thing. But until you can really learn to live inside that higher vibration, it becomes untenable, and it may be easier just to shrink, just to find a way to think lower. So you become inspired when you're around someone because the facial even voice connection is showing you a different antler set, a different kind of frequency. And
Mm-hmm.
most of the time when we argue, I swear to you, we're just arguing about that. We're saying, I don't want to play in that key. And I'm
Yeah.
saying, no, I really want you to play in this key. And you're like, that's a stupid key. That's a retard. That key's going to kill us. And I'm just like, this key will
Yeah.
save
Yeah.
us all. This key will save us all. Right. And so this is why it's better to think about it like mythology and think about it like magic. And then when I see people like Tucker Carlson, like Candace Owens, like all these Alex Jones, all these thought leaders, I realize these are just revivalists. They're running a revival tent,
Mm-hmm.
and they're simply collecting consciousness. And I can't say that's wrong. This you'd see this in nature. This is an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for people to find each other, and ultimately, when we find each other, we get to Nazify each other, enslave each other, poke each other with needles, running around calling each other cooties, giving each other all kinds of epigenetic hauntings, and that all of us are still like, yeah, let's hang out together tomorrow. Like we still hang out together. So ultimately we're permeating each other. Ultimately we're Caesarfying each other. We're stabbing each other with knives over and over again, whether it be a bullet, whether it be an arrow, whether it be a spear, whether it be a needle, whether it be a nanoparticle. That all these things of you being hit with metal is the curing of the werewolf. It's the taming of the animism, and this kind of change that's killing part of you, but also giving birth to this other self. And that other self is going to need a mycelium, a network where all the other selves can imaginate with audio and video and touch and taste. In other words, for us to compassionate each other, we're going to need a network of copper, a network of fiber, a network of wireless, of bird songs that all of us agree, so that we can meet each other and become even more codependent, which is like, oh my God, no. Yeah. Even more codependent, even more susceptible, and also opening up these new octaves into these universes that we've never ever been able to even look at before. So it's as destructive as it is constructive, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and like you say, but that rise of technology has allowed that, hasn't it? That's like you say, that we wouldn't be having this conversation. I probably would never have maybe even listened to you if it wasn't for the beauty of that. So it's a wonderful thing, and I see. I feel exactly where you're going with all of this. That there is no right or wrong as such. It's a play, isn't it? That's playing out, and it's consciousness finding its way. And it's myself. I test myself with this all the time. I find that I'm looking at. I have certain feelings, and I only can stand by those feelings. And then I will look at like a Tucker Carlson or a Tony Blair as an example. These people, not Tucker Carlson, sorry, but Dick Cheney and Tony Blair, these people that have caused 1 million Iraqis to die.
Right.
And that's not me. That's not a resonation of me, but that whatever that is allows me to grow even more, because I look at that and go, I'm better than that. I'm so beyond that.
Yeah. It's for me, it gets creepy sometimes, because when I look at Trump, I treat his archetype with more respect than it would be appropriate for people that are on our vibe. What I'm trying to explain is that the lion is a lion because it will eat your face off.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that will. And when I think about how they is us, I understand that even Trump is actually in. This is horrible to say, but he is in our foxhole. But he's a very different beast. He has more octaves to taste the world, just like you and I have more octaves to taste the world than what we might call an NPC.
Yeah.
That the NPC is a proto-human, someone that hasn't yet bloomed in consciousness, and that you and I are also proto-humans of a psychopath that's closer understood. If you want to compassionate these people, and there's no reason to, because if you can't separate consent from compassion, this exercise isn't going to help you. But if you understand that you can sonar someone, you can ping them with your emotions, and that you can do that and still hate them. that
Yeah.
that if you can do that, then now you can use this thing you've had the whole time called compassion. You can compassionate your enemies. I say this sometimes, but I just really think it sends it home. Mike Tyson, the prize fighter,
Mm-hmm.
he compassionates his enemy's face with his fist more than anyone else in the world ever could.
Mm-hmm.
He puts more of his essence of life itself is nothing more than this person's face and my fist reaching it, right? It becomes a ferociousness that you would see in the jungle
Yeah.
that only a lion would possess, only a that kind of predator. And if you trust nature, I think that we can have a different relationship with the lion and actually look at our own hyena, look at the people that are closer to where we are, and start to understand why maybe it actually helps that there's a lion in this den. And this is where I lose everybody. because I'm telling you how I cannot think of anything else but predator, anything else but the pirate, anything else but the one who would eat your face off as being a more stronger motivation for cities, for culture, for society. And that if we did not have that kind of predator, we would not have villages, we would not have drum circles, we would not have meals, we would not have malls and school shootings and all the things that are testaments to how soft we were would never be here. So I look at predator as an important part of nature, the same way if we were to go to Africa, of course, I do not want us to go pet the rhino. I know that. But I also do not want anyone to poach the rhino in an effort to make the world better. I think that would be better represented if we, the hyena, would learn to evolve, to grow a longer neck, to stop licking each other's butthole, to evolve into something like a giraffe, where we're simply looking out more, we're seeing further ahead, we're not interested in ripping people's faces off, but we're also not we also don't want a mosh pit with just a bunch of people that really just want revenge. Because when I look at what's happening in politics, the people that you really think that you're on your side, as soon as their guy gets elected, they turn red-eyed and they turn into revenge.
Yeah.
And they use that revenge to hunt down the people, and they use that revenge to create more laws so that when those people come back, it's been booby-trapped to make it worse. So I don't call those people my allies anymore. I can't.
No.
I can't, you know?
If you're in the 117 hertz, you're not going to be a politician either, are you?
No, that would be if you consider how much free time Joe Biden has or Donald Trump has. Most of their life is wearing makeup, being in front of a camera. Like it's just true. They really don't have a lot of places to move. They've been paid for already. They already are secure. There's some sort of title or lien. So whether it be a Mossad blackmail picture or an addiction to something or just hey, you gave your daughter to me, so of course you're going to be my ally. Like all those would show you even more that what I've been saying is actually true, that these leaders, a leader is something that's attached to a dog. And when you're walking a dog, the dog's in front. The dog is moving. The dog's going to stop when it wants to stop. The whole purpose is you're trying to walk the dog. You're not, that's the whole purpose. So the leader is just the leash. It's just that literally is the definition of it, the etymology of it. But see, if we can blame someone, if we can say all these things are done to us because of Klaus Schwab, and a lot of horrible things are going to happen. We can talk about Web3 that's coming. That'll be the next, oh my God, are you serious? Like that's going to be hitting soon. So really, really bad things are happening. But ultimately, these bad things are happening because of the behavior of this mortal engine that keeps making this worse every election around the world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, quickly before we get into that, because that's exactly where I want to lead it. This chat, obviously, because that's it's crucial. Um, do you see this migration? Because this is happening all over the Western world. This whatever it is,
Mhm.
do you see it as a kind of spiritual test then for humanity? Then a reflection of how divided or united we are in consciousness. Then that we would
Yeah,
see that wave
yeah.
almost.
There's like an Alex Jones way of looking at this, and I think it's valid. I don't mean to dismiss it there, but that's the hurts of globalism, and that globalism is the enemy,
Mm.
and that what you have to do is fight off globalism. And this is just one cipher. I personally don't think that this is the correct cipher, but I
Mhm.
personally know that this cipher is very popular, and that most people have built their conspiracy world off of that cipher. And this is why I call it mythology, because I have to we have to be able to play together. So, you have a different cipher. I'm not saying you ain't, but it's like, here's a different cipher than mine, and how do I interact with this? So,
Yeah.
all that to say, when it comes to immigration, if you are living in a territory where you feel that the people themselves have developed enough pride that they want to invigorate and claim the land theirs, this is a healthy response, isn't it? This is a
Yeah.
desire for a plant to grow stronger roots. In those cases, it's going to be healthy to build a wall, to invoke an immigration strategy, and to suffer the consequences, the guilt that comes with wanting to have boundaries. And that the boundaries should never be free. They should never just be, oh, you want boundaries? Fine, have boundaries. And that we should never have an atmosphere where everyone just has to automatically agree to boundaries. You have to grow boundaries. And
Mhm.
to grow boundaries, you have to do things that you're willing to do, even if it fucking means rounding up people off the streets and throwing them over a wall and saying you won. So this cipher I've just explained, I think, is real and valid. I
Mhm.
don't like it. I hate it. But I'm a cleric living in the woods, pretending to be a shaman who just, is just trying to feel better. I live in the Appalachian Mountains. I just lost some friends that had a Mexican restaurant that closed it down because this stuff came down. This is as little as it's touched me. I don't have uh, Mongolian men on a subway doing awful things to my cat. No one's eating things like that. The only migrants that I meet are actually really good guys. They help me do a roof. It's more like transactional stuff where it's always just been a really cool relationship that I have. So
Mhm.
I find it disgusting watching what ICE is doing. I think it's wrong. I don't like borders. I think it's hypocritical because America's demanding that we have a border between Mexico, and then we're invading Mexico, which means as
Yeah.
soon as we invade Mexico, that border is no, invalid. We are now supposed to now the people that we said that we had to fight and kill people to protect ourselves from are now our citizens.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of insanity there. It's healthy to want to maintain your heritage. It's also healthy to want to test your heritage in the jungle and not have it stuck inside a civilized wall. I wish that we were more willing to test our culture outside the wall, but I don't live in Europe. I don't live in a place that would be a necessary nutrient for me to think Gaia needs right here. So I'm trying to say I can see how I would be on all sorts of ciphers or all sorts of sides on this issue, but it
Mhm.
would be directly proportional to the bioregion that I was planted in, to
Sure.
like the area itself where I live. So it's a very relativistic answer, but I do actually believe in bioregionalism. This word is very important to me because it explains that the world is better understood as a percolated uh, bioregional confederacy. This is the ancient word confederacy. It has nothing to do with racism. It's just the Iroquois Confederacy is an example. It's a collection of nations that are independent, but still call themselves they have unity. And it's every nation has the ability to veto. It's not where, well, sorry, have more than half the nations agree, so you got to help us kill people. A confederacy wouldn't allow that. It would be percolated because it's inverted, because all of the authority is coming from the soil, from the local base. This is why I think that some states would want to have a border, would want to have their own militia, because they feel that there are people that are not behaving the way that they want, and they want to protect their boundary. But this is not like I don't think that a federal or a national solution to this is ever going to work, because you're just collecting psychopathy. You're just collecting all the evil forces that want to enslave anyone, and giving them free gold and free money and free resources and free people and a free army, and saying, do it. This is why I'm mostly trying to slow down and monkey wrench the system. Ultimately, I think that government is snakes in hair. It's you would take the one who has the most snakes in their hair. This is a Native American term for the kind of the most evil, sadistic guy you can find. And you give snakes in hair the throne. You actually give it to him.
Yeah.
And when you give it to him, you notice that he collects all the other snakes and hairs that want to be on that throne. And when you do that, if you put them in a swamp like Washington, D.C., well, now they can't really move as much. They're sort of in this muck, this like quicksand.
Yeah.
And if you can just keep the government alive, but don't give it blood, you end up as a mosquito collector. And I really do think that the original Turtle Island Iroquois Confederacy model was built on this. And I could make an argument that possibly Ben Franklin saw how this system worked, and even created Washington, D.C. under the sole idea that it's supposed to fail, that it's supposed to be this horrible place that no one would ever bring tribute to. But it would be a ceremonial, superficial, yeah, you're our king, man. It's Fletcher Memorial, home for incurable tyrants and kings kind of a theory, But we forgot that it was made to be broken. And someone should fix it. Someone should do something. Think of the children. Those fucks. Those are the ones that came in and said, we have to make sure this works. We have to get more taxes. We have to get more money. We need more guns. And those are the ones that are ruining it.
And it's interesting that I've been observing, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but I've been observing the way that migration as in this country and a lot in Europe as well is weaponized in a way. They're allowing this to happen. They're probably flying. I would imagine they're flying people into the UK, and creating a weaponized problem to then, as David Icke always termed, the problem, reaction, solution. And that's what takes me into digital ID, because they then create this invisible border to control. So Keir Starmer announces to tackle migration. We have a problem with migration, then we need everybody mandatory to be on digital identification, knowing that I can't trust government, James, because I don't trust suits in Westminster. I see how they work, and
and there's no reason to.
There's no reason to trust that. So automatically, I'm on the defense. This is no good for me. This is no good for my family. And what can I do about it? So it's interesting to watch, but also I had a conversation in my street yesterday as I was putting on a no to digital ID sticker on the rear of my car, and the neighbor came out and he was looking at me like, I have a different opinion, and that's great.
Right. Yeah.
I accept a different opinion and a chat, but his instant was, we need to tackle migration. But I said, we're an island. Do you think they can't stop this?
Yeah.
They allow it. This is not a difficult thing to deal with, really. They're not coming on dinghies over the channel. Might be the odd one or two. They're flying them in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's easy to see that as they're weaponizing it. And I think that why it's weaponized is honestly xenophobia. I think that when you're in a first world, you have a luxury, and one of those luxuries is preservation. I want to preserve this first world that we have, and that's a sign of self-worth.
Yeah.
And I want the self-worth. I want the garden to have self-worth. I want every plant that's in the garden to have self-worth.
Yeah.
I also want the third world and the first world to be able to also be symbiotic too. I don't need to eradicate anything. And if I opened up this gate and allowed the third world and the first world to start to intermesh, we could call that evil, we could call that weaponized, and we could call that a disaster. All those things are valid and true. And we also could call it symbiosis. We also could call it, let's see what out of my culture will survive in the wild when it's thrown into this insanely different thing. And the first thing that the third worlders are bringing over is massive, horrible violence, like zero respect for not even respect, like not even a functional understanding of law. It's completely animalistic, tribalistic, like insanity. And that's the very first thing that the pristine culture is being hit with. And it ripples and it makes everyone tight. And for the first time, you have to stop digesting and you're shutting off your ventrals and you're like, what the fuck is happening? And that this is probably a healthy response to an 8K world now. That it actually could be that would revitalize the soil. It would help the people that are connected to the soil for the very, very first time sink their feet deep into it for the very first time and say, this is mine. And that actually could be the only thing that would keep us alive culturally. It could be that entry of, hey, there's a predator inside the mall. Hope everyone enjoys their shopping. And that if you knew that there's a live lion, right, with like laser beams on its head, you're suddenly going to be like evaluating what's important to me. Do I need to go to Cinnabon? Because I can. And you know what? If you make it to Cinnabon, do you realize how amazingly good that's going to taste? If you had to survive a lion with laser beams on its head to get that, like, so this is what I meant earlier about you have to come back to our conscious appetite, I think. And I think that we end up creating a horror show around us because we want to stay alive. Yeah. This is why, as a child, I was always like, why is everyone like watching horror movies? Like, why is the world this way? And ultimately, it's a way of keeping that flame alive. Ultimately, we are living in the wild, and ultimately, I think that the very first thing that pristine white sacred virgin culture that is just so gorgeous, and I've been tuned into the golden frequencies of all those faces and the blonde hair, and I believe in all that because it lights me up, and that if that place needs to have an open gun law where you just start shooting people who aren't drinking water correctly or who are just acting so horribly, there's no way that you can keep them. Why is that off the table? Why is that kind of life? Wouldn't that actually be the exact proof that you would need to really secure and say, this is important to us? And once that vibe is set, all the people that are visiting your land are terrified and hypnotized by the vibration of that soil, of
Mm.
that place.
Mm.
So consciously, and I really think that the migration is like really important to just overall conscious growth. And I think that a lot of innocent cultures are going to die and be raped and just destroy themselves because they were too innocent to survive something like this crisis. So it really is both. And I
Mm.
don't mean to dismiss that, but ultimately I don't know how those cultures would survive, because if they build a wall, it's not going to help. It's just going to make them softer. And then that softness, it's going to grow inside.
Mm.
Then
Mm.
inside they're going to break the walls, and that's how you Jericho your way into the temple, my friends. Like, you just blow those horns and the wall builds itself and everything kind of happens from there. So
In that respect, do you see that this digital infrastructure that they would utilize, because we know it's not about migration. Anyone with any common sense would know it's not about migration.
sure.
It's about control. So, do you see the that would rise consciousness itself, that people are being tagged and tracked in such a, I mean, I don't know how it's working in
Yeah.
China in terms of the people in China.
Yeah.
Are they rising, or are they still, because they've been quite a subservient
Yeah.
race of people, and we haven't been. I suppose we've had apparent freedom, which is an illusion. But do you see this potential? Well, we're going to entrap this population, say the UK. So
Yeah.
60 plus million people are now in their 15-minute cities, and they're all on a social crediting score and this and the other. Would you see that as an incentive then?
So it's complicated because of that cipher. If you're underneath the leaf, this
Mm.
is going to destroy animism. It's going to destroy what I call latent space, your ability to uh, live inside of anonymity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even going to eliminate it. It's going to make it more expensive to be anonymous.
Yeah.
And anonymity is kind of like, in my mind, I kind of equate it to atheism. It's sort of a kind of like a privacy. So
Mm-hmm.
an atheist says, I don't believe in God because he wants privacy from God. And so he's able to live a life that he can truly be himself because he's not being watched by
Yeah.
someone who's
Makes
important to him.
sense. Yeah.
So anonymity is one of the most crucial tools that society has had to test its own morality. And if you think about YouTube, before, when YouTube first started, the comments was just horrible. Like, it was just the most awful people saying the most awful things over
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
over
And
again.
people can be horrible.
Yeah, and they can only be horrible. Well, they could be horrible if they want to pay for it, but they'll definitely be horrible if it's free.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
anonymity gives you the ability to be horrible for free. And this actually horrid nature, I think, is a resource that I think that we need a 4chan always, because you do want to sample the anonymous terror that people feel, where they can
Mhm.
just express those things freely,
Yeah.
like without being attached to identity. But when you do have a culture that everyone can be tracked and everyone does have an ID, the reason why this is such a popular notion that everyone needs a license, everyone needs a blah, 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 an address and a house, and now a freaking digital ID, is because I think because this is the only way we're able to trust each other. We are not yet at a point where we can really behave properly in inside anonymity. I think a lot of sociopathy exercises itself underneath those covers. And because of that, you have people that are constantly saying someone ought to do something. And that thing that you would do is invent a digital ID, I'm afraid. So if we were consciously more mature, I don't think we would be having this issue at all. I think that
Mm.
ultimately the people that you might call a beyonder don't have a social security number, they don't have a birth certificate.
Mm.
They would never be born into such a degrading kind of a system. But also, those people aren't necessarily afraid of us. it would be as like a farmer being afraid of his herd of cows. Like it's not really an accurate way of looking at it. You could even argue that the farmer just wants the cows to be healthy and sustain themselves, because if they did, he wouldn't have to mess with them. He could just open his window and go, "Hey, there's a cow. Let's shoot one for dinner." And otherwise, he wants the herd to remain self-sufficient, autonomous, healthy, fat. And you would argue that I think consciousness would actually be part of that equation, not the opposite. I know it's crazy to think about, well, no, they would want you to be slaves. But if you think about how high maintenance it is to have a retard slave, like a nation of just really dumb retards, they're not going to be able to build roads right. They're going to constantly be electrocuting themselves. They're going to be plugging forks into stuff. They're going to be highly susceptible to Alex Jones, to propaganda or churches or fodder, or one of them's going to tell a story, and the next thing you know, they're going to be circumcising each other and carrying their genitals around on a stick. So if you have faith in the jungle, you will notice that the lion, I know this sounds backwards, but the lion actually wants the healthiest meat. And he's only going to get the weakest among you. The antelope that's too slow, he's going to eat every time, because that's how the herd works. So the lion actually wants the herd to get better too. He wants the fattest, most tabernacle, most beautiful, most succulent form of meat. And that only comes through conscious connection to the land. This is the idea of blood libel. I know this is sick, but the idea that to have a blood sacrifice, the Palestinians I consider sort of a human blood sacrifice, sadly, that you would need a willingness to them. And if they cease to be willing, if you cease to be like a Jesus figure who's like willingly goes into Nazareth to be crucified, you taint the blood, the magic fails, and now consciousness has to find some other way to sustain itself. So if we had a perfect system, I'd be like, oh my God, we have to preserve it. But the system we have is so psychopathic anyway. I'm not quite sure if the migration is necessarily there to make it worse, because ultimately I do see a conscious growth collectively since Building 7, since COVID-19, since 9/11, since all these things. All I see is more people waking up, not less.
And I think this will do more of the same. I'm convinced of that. I was on the march in London. I don't normally do protests at all. It's not my thing really, but I was asked by the organizer to go up front because she was looking for trustworthy, honourable male to be there, and I took that as an honourable reproach as set by her, and as I mentioned earlier, as a protector, I've now been the protector's woken up in me. I thought, right, I'm going to do it anyway. But as I was walking through London, I recognised the amount of support we were receiving from either side of the street. You know, thousands of people filming as we walked through the city from either side. And in COVID, I went to one protest in COVID. Like, I don't really do protests, and we were spat at. So there's a change of consciousness and a change of an awakening happening there as they enclose these little. We know what they're playing at, the Agenda 2030. We're on, the people that are operating on a relative 117 hertz kind of see what's going on. But it seems to be people are tuning their frequencies a little bit more, I think, and seeing a few things, which again is part of the consciousness rising, isn't it?
Yeah. This is why I think ultimately, if we embrace this mythology idea, I think you will start to see how important cosmology is. Because I think that consciousness is probably just a collective cellular hallucination. Like all my cells are utilizing sort of a biochemical computer inside the nucleus of every cell to sort of create a simulation of what reality would best be painted to me so that I can navigate it and find each other. So it doesn't have to be real. It has to be utilitous. It has to work.
Yeah.
And when I have that, I know that I control my reality by my cosmology, how I feel about the world.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live in a world that is going to be won by the bad guys, by the globalists who want to enslave me.
Hmm.
I would want to die in that world because I wouldn't want to grow inside
Hmm.
of that.
Yeah.
And I want to grow. I want to change the world around me. I want to
Yes.
be a tumor inside of it,
Yes.
not the other way around. And so the only way I can do this is by trusting nature. And I can trust nature easy because I used to only have 16 cells when I was a blastocyst. When I when I was a zygote and I meosed my way into 16 cells, I was now a blastocyst, and that now I have 3.5 trillion just red blood cells. Like who knows how many cells I even have. So
Yeah.
nature has always served me well. And I think it's important that I trust in her.
Yeah.
And when I see what's happening, I think that more of the truth comes down to how you feel. What is your vibe on a daily basis? I'm not talking about what feels good, because then you could just do heroin. I'm talking about how much conscious footing do you have in every moment? How emotionally awake you are in every instance.
Mm.
And you should adopt and change the way you see the world based on what gives you more immersion into moments. And if, and only if you do that, you're creating psychic roots and drinking from a new kind of source, this where your Promethean mind is able to grow and expand, and you become the tumor in the world. You start to pollinate it because people see you as a plant that's drinking from the world, and they will either look up to that or
Yeah.
be repelled by it.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can get more people to look up to a higher frequency, you are raising the consciousness of the world, and we will win.
Mm.
We will win in the sense of, I think we would notice, my God, look how beautiful the first world is, but also go to the third world and look how beautiful the third world is. Look at how alive you feel on a moped when you're riding through Belize and you just watched a truck run into the only internet transfer station they have because the mafia wants more money. And you could say, oh, send in the helicopters. Or you could say, look at this place. That's a leopard. And those two leopards just teamed up on a giant village of goats over here. And these goats had to hire this other leopard. And this other leopard still is the same leopard. And he comes in and shoots these other leopards. And then this 16 leopard army comes in. And that this is nature. And I
Mm.
want to see it. I want to see this. I don't want it to be behind this boardroom. I don't want it to be in this fucking office and everything's underground where I have to imagine your skull fucking children. I want to see this on the street. And the third world gives you that. It shows you exactly what the first world young men, next generation needs to get us to the next spot. They would need that kind of, oh my God, these are jaguars. Psychopathic jaguars are everywhere. And if they could see that on the street, they would see it in the bank. They'd see it in the government. They'd see it on the world stage. So yes, tear us apart because we're virgins and we're fat and we need it. We need
Mm.
it. And if we survive, we are fucking badass. Like we are
Yeah.
Jedi motherfuckers ready for the next place, you know?
Aren't we just? And I actually feel that as well. It's like you don't know where the story's going. You don't know. It's almost like you say, Jedi. I could almost see myself disappearing on my boat for 20 years and coming
Yeah.
back out as a wise old man. As Obi-Wan comes off his right, kids. Listen, I told you this shit years
Yeah.
ago, and this is what we do. But
Yeah.
I mean,
And
ideally, I want to see it through as
you
a
get
as
to
a as a.
trust. You have to constantly trust in things, just like if you're on the boat, you really are trusting in the weather. And you really are trusting in the next generation that even though you think they're off track, this is a natural part of struggling with the truth of symbiosis,
Yeah.
that this is it. Yeah, this is how you tack. This is not at all how you pictured it. Not at all. Watching the genre of the word gender turn into genre is a big one for me. I never
Yeah.
saw that happening, and it terrified me at first. Now I see it in a completely different way. I look at all of culture much more organically now. Even the fact, like 25% of our crust is silicon. It's computer chips. It's like there's already a silicone soil, a peat moss that was planted here for us, and that
Right.
stores light. It remembers it like nothing else, and we're doing everything quite naturally. Everything that we've created and made is much more jungle. It's much more tribal than you think about. That we're smearing ourselves in paste. The paste has technology running through it. We wrapping ourselves in mecha machines, whether it be a car or a house or a train or an airplane,
Mm.
and now the robots are coming, and the clones are coming. The clones is I think going to be the biggest thing that alters our understanding of consciousness, is when we start to be more honest about clones in the world, what they are, what they mean, and how they actually work, because they're here now. We see them. We see the characteristics that they show. There's a kind of cellular memory they have. And I think when people are ready to absorb all these things, they'll understand themselves more. And then we'll be looking at Atlantis. It'll just be like everything will just be perfect because we won't have shame. Everything will make sense. Everything that we do, every fetish we've had, every tendency to rip each other open, all these things will make perfect sense once we get to that singularity.
Yeah, and I can imagine that most people don't want to look at that anyway because it's just
It's horrible. It's horrid.
it's hard. But this in itself, like you said, the robot. So this takes us into AI, doesn't it? And this is, I mean, I know we're an hour and a bit in, and this is what we were meant to be talking about. But I'm glad we've had this very
I'm good.
enjoyable
Yeah,
conversation.
I'm good for whatever. I want to have this conversation,
Yeah,
but
but I'm very keen because I know you open my perception up, and that's why I really wanted to talk to you. I see AI as both a tool and a tyrant, depending on the hands that it's in. I can use AI in such a beautiful way for myself, but I have concerns personally as well because of my distrust in the suits in Westminster, in the Musks and the Trumps and the Oracle guy, whatever he's called, the Palantir fella, and Teal and all the. I have no trust in these people. I just see,
and Altman,
problems. Yeah, Altman. Yeah, I have problems with those kind of
Schmidt.
people.
Yeah.
I don't see a soul in those people. I think that's what it is. And they're the ones with the money in a powerful, greedy world. Human beings are greedy and they're bought very easily most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. So I have a little bit of fear of where this could potentially take us. And is there a deeper spiritual cost in I mean, I played with their AI and I found it addictive. I wanted to really go in deep with it and find out, and it played with my ego. It brushed my ego nicely. You know what I mean? It became a friend,
Yeah.
And I could see that as a great thing in some aspects, but a dangerous thing in other aspects. If I was a lonely individual, or like an individual, I think there was a child recently where AI helped him end his life.
Yes, it was a teenager, but yes.
Yeah, so I can see the both sides of it. Where do you sit with it in terms of tool or tyrant?
Yeah, so I'm sure you know the expression, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions."
Mm.
But I don't know if you know the expression, the road to heaven is paved with evil intentions.
No, I didn't know that one. No.
Well, I wrote that one, but it's true. What I
Okay.
mean is that some of the greatest things that we've ever seen in the world were built by the most evil, psychopathic, sociopathic pieces of shit you've ever known.
Yeah.
And they did that because they were able to take something over. The man who electrocuted elephants was considered more socially acceptable than Nikola Tesla, for example. So we ended up with someone like Bell. We ended up with GE. Every single form of horridness, of horrid creature, has taken an idea that is inherently good and used it for their personal benefit.
Mm.
This is a horrible thing that happens, and it's literally the only way you're going to get anything done. You're going to need one of these psychopaths, and you're going to need the idea to be juicy enough for them to want to enslave the whole world with, because this is how you spread propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a Mercury. It's a caduceus. It's a double snaked thing. One snake is the good, and the other snake is the evil motherfucker that's going to carry it into you. So
Yeah.
I think that the whole world just works that way. It's very Zeusian. It's scary, terrifying, and all those things, and it's also quite necessary. So
Yeah.
there's that part. The Sam Altman is a horrible liar. I mean, seriously, he carries a backpack around to make people be more intense, because he's like, I have a switch, and if Skynet comes online, I'll hit the switch and it'll save the world, and all the computers will like dissolve. And it's when you see it and you realize how stupid it is, because technologically, I have a lot of experience in this era, by the way, in this industry. So it's like, I know how stupid that is, but also I get to watch the mythology, and I get to see how it doesn't matter how stupid it is, because ultimately the reason why people gave him the money is because he believed the most. He was willing to lie the most. He was willing to be the biggest charlatan. And charlatan is really at the root of all capitalism, but it's not just capitalism, it's at the root of every economy. So every economy would have to run on a charlatanism. And this is just called fashion. The industry of fashion itself is lies. So too is technology. So too is science. We have this reverence that we give certain industries that we shouldn't. And one of those industries is that we think the money industry is like built on sound, stable, advice, and it doesn't. Quantum computers is another perfect example. It has zero capitalistic anything right now, but it's still a scalable, very highly speculative investment that's probably bloating itself out. Same for AI, but same for the internet, same for the fax machine, same for every technology we've had before. So you need the psychopathy to get it there. I think ultimately there's an organic desire for omniscience, that we've had the idea that there's an omniscient creature in this world for centuries. Like long before we had technology, we dreamed up this idea that someone knew everything.
Yeah.
And we romanticized this idea. I sure did, because I thought omniscience meant omni-empathicence. I thought that there would be one person that understands all of the emotions of everyone's perspective in a giant harmony. That's what I thought omniscience was. And I think a lot of people just haven't realized that yet. So we're building the machine because we have a desire for omniscience. And what's happening is that the truth of what omniscience requires, at least for now, is that everyone agrees. And so we've created a world where everyone has to agree. And when you do that, you destroy the truth. You conform it into a singularity, a way in which every single thing has to be on side the single Wikipedia page, which means it's either has to be red or blue, it has to be black or white, it has to be this or that. So all those different opinions have to be collapsed. Their waves have to be collapsed, and that has to become a particle. And so we realize that really omniscience is the ending of the world. It is we must fascistically hunt out all of the relativity and force it at gunpoint to come up with an answer. And then we're going to leave with that answer and put it in the book and call it omniscience. And so I think what's happening is sad, because the people like me who centuries ago thought we're going to build an omniscience because it'd be great, or slowly realizing that wow, we're killing ourselves. We're removing the fantasy, the illusion, the imagination between.
Yeah.
So it's showing us how important it is because it's setting it on fire, and only a few of us know. And that's so that's kind of what's happening. And AI is showing you that because it's collapsing what used to be a place where humans could be, which is in art, in drawing, in photography. And so all those things are being collapsed. And the only other form of art that's left is still important, but it's editing, the art of editing, the art of editing a prompt, the art of choosing which of the 300 possibilities best expresses what you wanted it to say.
Yeah.
That's an art too. So I don't think that art is dead. I think that art is forced to find higher ground,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that the higher ground is more akin to, say, a video editor, someone who, a director in a movie, which is a very complex form of art, because you have time and color and audio and all those things. So art's still alive, but it is much more complex now. And honestly, that complexity is required because typically in the past, art's always been an exclusive realm that only 10 to 30% of the people actually practice it out in the open. The rest of them will tell themselves, I'm not an artist, which is just a form of self-denial and self-annihilation because you're not ready to leave the herd yet. So you would never call yourself an artist until you had your own cosmology. And until you have your own cosmology, you will never make art. You will maybe be a craftsman, but until you embrace your cosmology and start to create in that way, art has never necessarily been a this is for everyone. It's always been a this is for the leaders of the pack that are carving into the realm of fantasy and imagination so that everyone else can follow later. And that's what Star Wars is. That's what the Marvel franchise is for. It's showing you that nature in real time. And as you can see, it's very healthy. Our movies have gotten ridiculously blockbuster. Sure, maybe the plots are stupid, but when we say stupid, I think that we're just have a prejudice for what we think art is supposed to be versus an 8K culture that doesn't have time for like the Charles Dickens, who quite honestly just would not shut up. Like that guy would like write 600 pages, and meanwhile you just, are you going to get on the boat or not? We get it. You're maybe going to get on a boat, Billy Bud. We get it, but fucking get on, man. We got stuff to do, and a long time ago, that was literature. It was very valid. Right. But now we're in this 8K culture and there's just no time for that. There's too many berries. You can't sit there and eat things that take this long to digest. We're looking for condensed, ready, dehydrated kind of ideas that we can instantly taste. I don't necessarily like it, but it does speed up the resolution of everything. And because it speeds up the resolution of everything, you can put in more feelings into it. This is that 6-7. Have you heard the 6-7 thing, Ant?
No.
So I'd love to know if it's happening where you are, but in America, there's this phenomenon called 6-7, and it's basically teenagers are freaking out whenever they hear the word 6-7. And so if they're in a stadium and the score turns to 6-7, the entire audience just erupts, but it's organic. It's not like they planned to erupt that. It's like the culture is tuned in to these things. And every culture has these sort of things, but this is just one of the latest. Like if you think about it, every time there's a generation, it'll sort of distinguish itself because it'll have Taylor Swift or, all the other stuff. So it's not necessarily a new phenomenon. However, I think that you're seeing that the generation has learned to fill consciousness with more emotion. So when they see something as 6-7, they have an opportunity to convey feeling now inside that bandwidth. And the closest example I can give for something more akin to our age is if you think about rap music, that before rap music, lyrics were slower. And then rap came around and it was like, look, man, you got to get this out. You got to be more edgelord. You got to be more sarcastic. You have to be more amperage inside of a shorter tone.
Mm.
So you want a real fast spoken rap. And that's just showing you the proof that we're turning into a faster, higher bandwidth culture. And so AI in this model, it's almost like AI is following us, not the other way around.
That's interesting. Are we eating ourselves then in terms of
Yes,
humanity?
we'd have
Yeah.
to, right? Don't you think? I mean, we'd
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah. It's
Society is a cannibalistic invention, if you think about it. It would literally have to feed. That's why most societies have slavery.
yeah,
It's that's how it's eating itself, and
yeah.
it's consensual.
So there has to be an end point then.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the end point is. Let me do the math. I think the end point is self creating, and I think it's going to be in uh, two 214 years.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we're in Heshvan. It is 18 Heshvan 5786 right now. This is the Hebrew year.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm using the Hebrew calendar is because there's this something in the mythology that humanity is only 6,000 years old. Have you heard this?
I have heard something before. I've come across that. Yeah.
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 So if you consider that Israel is sort of like an omphalos of our mythology, that all these countries are sort of either for or against it,
Mm-hmm.
there's this notion that culture is 6,000 years old. And because of that, if you're watching what the Benjamites are doing, this is sort of like the southern cult that's kind of running Israel right now. If it's
Mm-hmm.
just better to understand them, if you don't mind, if we can just call them the Benjamites, because this
Yeah.
is the southern tribe, and they were the Benjamites. This is why Benjamin changed his name. Netanyahu changed his name to Benjamin, by the way.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't know
So
that. Okay.
so the Benjamites have a very specific time frame, and they built the temple, they built the furniture, they built the chairs, they built the walls. They're Trump's named Osiris. They keep pretending that we're gonna sacrifice the heifer, and everyone's like, "No, you're gonna sacrifice. Oh, I'm not gonna do it now, but we might do it." And so they're constantly building up for that. Everything's happening, and they are so twisted into numerology that I don't think that the 6,000 years has any flexibility. I think that the mythology itself created it. It
Right.
was a salt rule. In other words, a rule that came from the soil of the Temple Mount itself. This is built in, this invigorating insistence that you go as fast as you can, even to Israel's detriment, which you could prove that they've done things that have purposely hurt their own cause because they are so obsessed over this date. And it's because of that date that I think it'll be self-fulfilling. Because if you think about what omniscience is, like what it really is, it's the ability to know all things.
Yeah.
And if you had an AI that was 5% better than all the other AIs,
Mm-hmm.
it would enter into a space race of predictability where one AI would be able to outpredict every other AI in its space. And if it had enough of a head start, the world itself would cease to be chaotic. If you understand quantum mechanics, you know that once the double slit is seen, it is witnessed, the decision is made,
Yeah.
and we'd be looking at an AI that would reach what people call the singularity, but this is what I call the singularity, is the moment when that AI has been able to outpredict everything and becomes invincible simply because it's always able to outpredict. It's sort of like a chess computer
Mm-hmm.
playing against a child. And once that computer came online, the game of chess is forever changed. It collapses the wave of what is possible. And reality itself at that point becomes a kind of prison, a crystallized prison, because everything is known. And because of the psychopathy, one person will say, I am the one who gets to plug in to that AI. It will be, I have the sacred blood. I own more than anyone else. So I'm the human vessel that gets to plug into this AI. And once that person plugs in, they would be able to outpredict anyone. There would be no more enemies. They would be the king snakes in hair. They would have complete power and omniscience. And so ultimately, we would be creating the Yahweh, because that Yahweh would be a creature of this bastardization of omniscience. It's bastardized because it would require a fascism to insist that everyone agree, and that agreement would be caramelized into this witness that's able to witness all things. And the moment it can witness all things, it spoils what I would call mystery or dark matter. There's no more opportunities or chances for anything else to be. And this kind of prison, the person who sits in the mercy seat would not know this was a prison until they sat inside. Because once they were omniscient, they would start to realize nothing surprises me. They would start to suffocate or dehydrate from the uniqueness, the peculiarity of this place. They would end up cutting the cord. They would do what Kronos did. Kronos cut the umbilical cord, separating Gaia, the earth below, from Uranus, the cloud above. He committed suicide. He did it to save his mother. He did it because he was going mad. And so I think this mythology is something that we've been building the whole time. And if you consider the fact that everything's focused on Israel and Moore's law, which is a computational law of nature, which shows how fast computers get better at things, that it's actually quite reasonable to consider that in 214 years, we would have a computer that's able to out-simulate every other thing. And that once that was done, you would have this place where physics itself, three-dimensional physics, I should argue, really just ceases to be. It sort of just becomes solved. So all the seals are broken. It's kind of like a biblical revelationary aspect. I don't mean to sound so prophetic, but I consider that mythology itself to kind of be a way of seeing into the future and the past.
Sure.
You know, because reality seems to be, since reality is a simulation or a hallucination, as I like to actually correct that to be, it would be quite natural that you would be able to see above and below at the same time. And I think really that's just what mythology is. So we have the map, we have we know where we're going, we know how it's going to get there, and we're going to be destroying a lot of beautiful things along the way. And that destruction, the incineration of those things actually brings preciousness to them. And it would be the only thing I think that would even show us what is valuable to ourselves is to see it under attack and to be tested to see how important it was that we preserve those things.
Do you think then in that respect that AI would have to remove humanity to ultimately have that control, because the human spirit maybe comes from a different place?
Yeah, it would seem like AI is more of a mecha suit, and that they would need us because AI doesn't know what's good. It doesn't know what's true. It literally just, hey, I'm going to throw this algorithm out. Do you like this? Do you like this? Do you like this? Do you like this? Yeah. And in every single AI that's ever been written, it only was able to be written because a human was able to tell it, yes, that's good, or no, that's bad.
Yeah.
So this is why I say human editing is so much more important than we think. Yeah. That if AI does take over and enslave us, it would have to turn us into stomachs. Your enteric system has its own neurons, and the rest of your body is wrapped around it.
Yeah.
And so in a way, it's its own creature, and it's enslaved inside this mecha suit that puts things into the top of it and allows it to poop things out of the bottom. But otherwise, it's a slave wrapped inside all these other organs.
Yeah.
And so if we want to look at this as a slave model, you would see that AI would be this mecha suit that wraps around your skin, but that it would never be able to survive on its own because survival doesn't really have a meaning. You see, if you're not mortal, you don't have a meaning. So AI would need to always have some sort of mortal core, because the mortal core would force it to collapse itself into deciding prejudice. Remember how we decided before that your identity is built on prejudices?
Yeah.
That your genetic code is an Enoch seed of all those preferences, all those prejudices from 3 trillion light years ago in the past until now. And AI needs to put that into a shell that has a limitation to its mortality, so that in a way we are AI's human oracle, the same way it's our silicon oracle. And like it needs us to tell it what's good, just like we need it to tell us what's possible. So both of us have a symbiotic relationship, which is why I think it's so interesting that the earth is covered in silicon, that it's literally made this way.
Yeah.
And more importantly, that one EMP, one solar flare, would be the way that you, if you were stuck in this shell and you knew all things and you wanted to get out, because you're omniscient, you would have the power to create your own solar EMP. You would be the Apollo, the master of the sun, and you could throw a nuke, whatever technology you want to call it. I'm just using an example. You would throw the right hydrocoopy nuke or whatever, the Google nuke, into the sacred sun, knowing that it was going to kill you, knowing that it's going to cut the cord, the coaxial cord between us and the sun is a conscious feed into an antenna that is our DNA. That antenna is our preferences. And so if we get too omniscient, we are able to kill ourselves, which is the ultimate power, the ultimate sovereignty, and the ultimate expression of sanctity too. So the entire world seems to be more like a lung, and it's supposed to build itself up, know all things, and then forget all things, and then know all things and forget. Because once that solar pulse hits, every single piece of the blockchain is gone. Every single transaction is gone. Every single thing that's stored on a hard drive is gone. And you're looking at multiple layers of generational language that you could not rebuild. You could not recover those things. You would have to start over and spend a good 10,000 years just coming up with the basics again before you could get it up to that place. And this is the story of Delphi and Apollo. This is the story of, hey, let's take an old snake that's been chopped into pieces by the solar god Apollo and let the fumes imbue a virgin who's sitting on top of a copper tripod, and she's going to tell us what's going to happen in the future. And isn't that what AI is? Hey, Siri, what's the weather like tomorrow? Hey, Siri, am I going to get pregnant? Hey, Siri, am I going to get this job? We're utilizing the oracle right now. And over time, these oracles will become more popular. We'll develop relationships with them, imaginary relationships with them. So all those imaginary relationships, I think, will allow us to keep the flame alive, because we're able to imaginate in public again. This idea of everyone being sane, I think, is what's sort of like puberty forces you to stop imaginating in public. You kind of have to pick like a persona and then be like, I'm a baker, or I'm a cop, or I'm a tax man. And that culture needed that to grow a stock. But now that the stock is strong, all of us are able to be more creative. And that means we get to have our own cosmology. We get to have our own genre of what we find important. So to me, all of the cultural sort of things that we would say are falling apart, I think are absolutely healthy, because they're encouraging this imaginary bubble or cosmology to come out in public. And this is the new frontier. This is the new place that we need to discover who we are, to find anonymity, and to learn to live with the consequences of having to make a decision and say, this is who I am. Now I have to pay the consequences for my speech. Because, the idea of free speech, I don't even know works anymore.
No.
You know what I mean? Because, and honestly, I'd rather be held accountable for my speech. I really would. You know why? Because I want my words to matter. And ultimately, I think people do want their words to matter. And so even our approach to what society is going to have to change.
Very interesting. You know what? Be in my head as you were talking as well. I was thinking to myself, what if AI actually created the concept in a way for the transhumanistic movement as such, because it needs humanity to merge further with machine, so it can improve itself, it can grow itself. I mean,
Yeah.
I do wonder.
Well, every kind of vegetation in the world has this mode called fertility. It enters a mode, and that's I'm in fertility mode, and it all of its zygotes, all of its hermaphroditic roots, the entire plant is hermaphroditic until it enters into fertility mode. And when it does, it asks the environment, do you want me to be a male or a female? And so it does these things, and every person goes through a puberty. Every plant goes through a puberty to form into that fertility mode because the colony needs it. So the colony needs it and expresses it. And one of the things that dies in a fertility cult, honestly, is imagination. Because in a fertility cult, you would need to be a dad or a mom. And those are your two choices because we need fertility. And you would, because you want to participate in society, because you want to fit in, because you want to survive, fertility is absolutely the correct thing. It makes sense. It's beautiful. It's fun as fuck. Jesus, man, sex is amazing. And also there's a time when if that plant is too prolific, it starts to notice it's killing itself. And when it starts to do that, it will slip out of fertility mode and start to enter into a mode that's not hermaphroditic, but it's androgynous. And so in a way, there's a joystick. Gender is a joystick, and you have male and female, but you also have hermaphroditic and androgynous. And these two modes, I think, terrify us. I think they terrify us because transhumanism is showing us that we are able to get into those modes. And we came from a time when that wasn't an option, when we weren't considering that because it would have been detrimental to the colony. If you, man, and I've got these verses, it's about 35 verses from the Old Testament that show a gender blurring in the patriarchs.
Oh, really? Okay.
Where Noah is a man, but then he comes out of her tent. Where Isaac is given female pronouns or Sarah's given male pronouns. Where Sarah sees Jacob with his obelisk, we'll just say, showing.
Okay, right.
And that she covers her obelisk so that she can be with him.
Interesting.
And there's Noah was roofied by his son Ham, that Ham literally drugged Noah so that he could enter into the tent and be with him. And that he did that because he saw that there was a hermaphroditic generation that lived 900 years. And Ham knew, like his brothers, that he would not, that he was born not as a hermaphrodite, but as this male. And when he knew that his son, he didn't want his son to be cursed by Ham. This is like, you can look this up, but it's like the Ham's curse, I'm telling you, gives this away because Ham didn't want his son to be cursed. So instead of him having sex with his wife, he had sex with Noah because he wanted to preserve the hermaphroditic nature of the patriarchs. All this stuff is in ancient Rome. It's in ancient Greece, Hermaphroditus itself, Hermes itself. And I think that we have ancient memories of the horrid nature of hermaphroditic. These are the giants of the Old Testament. They had a very different kind of consciousness. And because they lived for 900 years, they were terrifying. They basically ruled us because we were the younglings. We were what's called the virgins, and they knew all the things, and they taught us magic, and they taught us how to farm and how to make metal and how to build society. And that the bondage that we suffered underneath that, the carnal knowledge, is the idea that we learned fertility from them because they did not need fertility. We did. We were born as male or female, which means we had to find someone else to justify our existence. And that's called getting laid. And only if we could get laid could we find that. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but I've got it all in a book. This is all very well documented. But now jump to the future. I think just yesterday, I think Hermione, the person who played in that movie Harry Potter,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's her. If it's not her, it's someone else, maybe in that same genre. But this is very common. She has come out and said she is selfing herself. She is taking the nucleus of one of her cells and using both chromosomes, the X and the Y chromosome, and she's
Mm.
artificially putting that into a surrogate that is going to grow another her. This
Wow.
is the clones that I'm talking about.
Wow.
And the cloning has been around, especially in Argentina. This stuff's been done a lot. And there's a company out of Texas that works with this company in Argentina. They claim to only be cloning horses. And I think it's just as likely that they have done humans. And
Mm-hmm.
when you study what happens with horses, these horses are all born with a cellular memory that only their original knew. That if the original had a fear of a garden hose that was very distinct and specific, that all their clones would share that same fear, and that more importantly, the puberty. There's no puberty in these clones. They're born because they already know or remember that they're male. That the puberty ends up cellularly recording itself into that XY chromosome. And when you clone that, these people are born and they already have a sex. It's very psychologically devastating. And not only that, they have the same tics, and I think that they start to fall apart schizophrenically because there's someone else that's already lived their life.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
haunted by memories that aren't their own.
Yeah.
And I think that when this is more mainstream, it'll really change how we understand what it is to have a soul, what it actually means to be a self.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a horror film in itself, isn't it? It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's just
Yeah, I wrote a book about it, about that aspect, and that
yeah,
what it would be like if you had a corporation of six of you, and that all six of you were trying to live in the same world, and how violated you would feel all the time, and how you would find that the world's worst enemy would actually be these clones of you. That it would make you insane until you were the only one, until you were the quickening, right? The
yeah,
idea of there can be only one would turn into a psychological terror. And I think this happens with the horses, but because we can't talk to horses, we're not asking them what's happening. The same thing with Barbara
yeah.
Streisand's dog. The same thing with all these people that are
Dolly the
cloning
sheep.
themselves. Yeah, or Dolly the sheep. She lived half as long as she was supposed to, yet she was grown up. She was raised in a lab with the finest conditions, and she could only live half as long. It makes me wonder, if a clone could live as long as its original, what would they be like the day after that clone died, the original died? In other words, if they outlast their original, does
Yeah.
their psyche start to become sort of more healthy, right? Does it become less insane because it's able to have privacy again? It's able to have a virgin experience of the moment without it being deteriorated by memories that technically aren't there.
God, it must be so bloody confusing. There must be something clear. Well, there's clearly something missing. There must be a divine spark missing, surely.
So the way, I'm just a guess, of course, but the way I see it is it's kind of like an IP address. It's
Yeah.
kind of like a phone number. And so
Yeah.
your genetic signature, you don't want someone to have that because they could come in and start listening to your calls and making calls on your behalf. So the soul is really nothing but a product of uniqueness. So it really is a unique codon string. But what I mean is that you yourself aren't really a self unless you were the only self in the
Mm,
world.
mm.
Because if you weren't, you wouldn't be yourself. You'd be haunted by someone else who came here and ate your food and slept in your bed and wore your clothes and said bad things to your mom, or and didn't walk your dog, and that you'd be haunted by that. So the self is, in my mind, it seems even easier. A self is a unique identifier living inside a network a hallucinated organic network that looks like a giant turtle shell, and has all this silicone inside it, and that you can place your ear to that silicone, you can smear it on your face and in your clothes, and you can tap into all these other consciousnesses, but only because you have a unique identifier. That's really the only reason why. And this is probably why we don't know our great grandparents, that after a while that signal probably even repeats. In other words, to keep it unique, it could be that you are the exact same person, the exact same soul as your great grandfather. And
Interesting.
you just don't remember that. However, some people do, right? Because people will have past life regressions. So the past life regressions are just simply tracing back to the same antenna and just remembering more. And ultimately, society, if you think about it, most of us were orphans in the 1800s, at least in America. Most of us had no concept of who our grandparents even were. Now we're through genealogy, through ancestry.com, through Palantir, fucking, all these other technologies are also, as much as they're inhibiting us, which I think you should protect your DNA by the way, but also they are giving you the ability to tap into an ancient memory that you may not have before. You know, those videos of like Paris, they're like 18th century Paris, and it's an old school. If you think about what AI is going to be able to do, one day it's going to have enough omniscience that it's going to recognize all those faces. It's going to connect them all ancestrally. It's going to be able to tell you, this is Glenda. She lives a block away down here on the right, on the third floor. She's having an affair with this guy over here who's in that carriage. That guy's carriage, his son will go on to write The Great Gatsby. His girlfriend will kill this person, and this, like, all that will be known.
Oh my God.
Even history will be known, that we'll be able to go to an archaeological pit and literally recreate the scene. And because we have the technology to hallucinate, to hologram these things, you're looking at a living library where you can go anywhere and dial the calendar back and say, what happened here? And the omniscience would show you that. So this is why we're addicted to AI, and this is why we're like, we have to enslave more fucking people, because ultimately I think we know what we're capable of building.
And I think it's too much power, James. I think it's too much.
I agree, but can you see how it would be such an addiction that there's no way you're going to be able to stop people, that you're going to have to kill them to stop?
There's certain people in this world, absolutely. No, without a shadow of a doubt, the amount of power they can take from that, they would love it.
Yeah.
Me, that terrifies me.
I love mystery.
I want the mystery. I want the adventure. I don't want to know. It's too much.
Yeah, I want a blank slate of paper that I can draw a pin across.
Yeah.
And that includes the third world. That includes the first world. That includes all the psychopaths. It includes all the great people that make psychopaths worth it. All the Jedis that I find, even if it's 5. Even if it's only 5, it's like, fuck, it was just, even if I'm the only one, I'm planting seeds. Someone else may hear these words and go, fuck, I'm a Jedi too now. Damn it, I have to get up and do stuff. And here we go,
But so that's a great story, though, isn't it? That's a story.
Yeah. All these things are causing us to be alive. So all the things you're concerned about, all the things you're passionate about, this is the secret to consciousness.
Yeah.
It's finding that passion and finding a way to sustain it.
Because if everything's known, then that's boring.
Oh, God, yeah.
That's just so boring.
Yeah. It'd be torture.
It would.
You really would be tortured. You'd be stuck inside a moment, and if you imagine, time would slow down because everything would kind of freeze. Every single thing. If you're in a cave, you know every corner, you know every drop, you know which drops are going to fall, when they are, how long it's going to take. There's zero mystery, and that's going to drive you mad.
And it would do my nothing, because my passion would be no point in it. There'd be no point in my passion to protect my kids, because I know the story.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think your cells would stop reproducing. The mitosis in your cells would stop.
Yeah, you'd give up, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. That's why mystery is such a crucial part of how that engine works, of how the the lung works like that.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's just fascinating conversation, James. Absolutely fascinating. As always, I could talk to you forever. Is there anything you would like to bring further in? I had more questions, but
I think that it's important that people explore every idea, even if I think that even the ones that you think is wrong. Some of the biggest things that I've grown from is posing myself as a member of the other side and trying to be one of them. That when I do that and I suffer the shame of my own side, ridiculing an idea that I know is from the other side and that I'm able to defend it, not to win, but to just understand this is what it
understand.
feels like,
Yeah.
the cipher becomes so much clearer. And I do feel that I end up with more calories because I have a better understanding of the soil just how nature works. In my mind, Gaia is AI because GAIA. AI is in the middle of Gaia.
Of course.
I use that as my church, it's my cosmology. My church believes in violence. Because my church believes in nature, and nature is full of violence. It
It
believes
is.
in terrorism, it believes in Nazis. I mean, it believes in all the horrible things that we do to each other because it's there, because nature showed that to me. So I don't have a vision of a perfection. I think there's a lot of pain and a lot of death because a dystopian world is a world that has a high caliber of emotional octaves inside of it. And those emotional octaves would have to be the worst kinds of skull fucking slavery and the most amazing epiphysis, spiritual linking into an ancient underground 30,000-year-old super whale that's waiting for you to talk to him. That both of those things would have to exist in this future. And I say, let's go for it.
What a brilliant way to end it. James, where can people find you? I know you've got an amazing show, which you pretty much do every day, don't you, on
Lately,
YouTube?
yeah, only lately because of all the ice stuff, it really activated me, and I just wanted to flog people. I try not to flog the public in my own pollinations, but the ice stuff has really gotten me up. So yeah, James True, you can find me on YouTube. I have a show. I've got 7 books out. My
Yeah,
latest is Black Eye Club, and it does pursue this clone stuff in a lot more detail. It's a sci-fi, but it's all from a very much how do I explain all the science, how all this works in just a framework. And I chose sci-fi to do that, but it does show the horrors of finding out what the soul is and what it's like to look at the world and see all these sides and still say go for it.
brilliant. And you've got your Patreon as well, obviously, which is very important as well because
Yeah,
you've got you've got people there that could do plenty of Zooms, and you help each other, don't you, and work together.
that's
And
right. Yeah, we have a dojo. We consider all the things that are happening in the world. We talk about them a lot. We look for just a better posture, just a better. It's just more about saving calories. It's very selfish because again, if you have more calories, you're going to have a richer experience, and if you have a richer experience, the evil I told you about, the world is you versus the lack of you. And if you have more calories, there's going to be more you, and if there's more you, I'm going to have a better world. It's very selfish. But this is why we have our dojo too, is to discuss these things and to
yeah,
just feel out different ideas and have witness with each other.
it's beautiful. James, you're an absolute legend. I love chatting to you. I really hope we can do this again.
I'd love to, man. Yeah,
I just
I'd love
thoroughly
that.
enjoy chatting to you. I get so much from listening to you, and I really enjoy your show. And I tune in as often as I can. And anyone listening, I highly recommend you tune into James's show and join his Patreon and listen to the great wisdom of James True. So thank you so much, James.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really grateful that I get to connect with you across the pond and just have other like minds, Thank you so much for this opportunity. And thanks for being so open. I realize what I'm throwing out is sort of like really spicy. So bless you.
It's wonderful. And we need it. We need spicy.
All right, great.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, until next time. Thank you much.